In 2014, in search of a lifestyle that was closer to nature, we left our busy life in the southeast of England and moved to a remote part of Scotland. Here, our lives could be more in harmony with the flow of the seasons. This is our story.
Good morning, welcome to my channel. It's the most beautiful morning here in Ardnamurchan. It's early February and I'm sitting just across the river from where I live in the sunshine, because this is the warmest place around. As I said, it's early February and I'm out looking for signs of spring. We've gone through a fairly long, hard winter. The light is beginning to return and it's always a joyful time. I'll talk more about Imbolc and the ceremony itself and the significance shortly, but wandering around my garden and the lands adjacent, as I say, there are very, very few signs of anything going on. There's a few snowdrops coming up here and there, and the early bloomers here are daffodils. They're the first things, and as you can see, there's quite a little show. But it'll be a week or two before the blossoms come out. The thing that I really look for are the catkins on the hazels and on the alder. And as you can see, the catkins on the hazels are still hard. What happens is that as the sun warms, those catkins will drop and become long and soft, and we used to call them, when I was a child, we used to call them lamb's tails. And they look like this. But you can see the difference between these hard, overwintering catkins and the softer ones where the pollen starts, because the catkins are actually the flower of the hazel. They're what actually flowers. Looking carefully, I see the alder is actually a little bit further on. The alder's a very unusual tree. It's a tree that grows by the side of rivers in wetlands and marshes. And it actually not only has its female aspect in terms of the cones, but it also has its own male aspect in terms of the catkins. So there are signs of spring, but you have to look for them. As a Druid, the first ceremony this time of the year is Imbolc. And we always look forward to that because it's when the weather starts gradually to get a bit warmer, the daylight increases. The imagery we use, and we use a lot of imagery in Druidry, is of the goddess Bridget, who is a pagan goddess who eventually ended up as a Christian saint. And the imagery we use is that as she comes up the land, where her feet fall, the land turns green and fruitful. We've got a little bit of time to wait for that in Ardnamurchan, if I'm honest, but it'll be here. So every year we perform the Imbolc ceremony, and ceremony for a Druid is basically sacred theatre. Many of you will not be familiar with that term, but it's the first of what we refer to as the fire festivals. There are 4 of those throughout the year. There's Imbolc, Beltane, which most people will associate with May the 1st, and then Lunasa, the first harvest, and finally Samhain, which is at the end of October. The significance of Imbolc has been lost in modern times to a large extent. If you think back to an agrarian community whereby you couldn't simply go to the shops, you had to husband and grow your own crops and harvest and store. So this time of year, from January through to probably April, were the hungry times, the hungry months. And we see that living here reflected in the animals. We see, for instance, the deer coming down off the hill because there's no forage up there. And in actual fact, our garden here is being grazed flat by the deer because it's hungry time for them too. So the term Imbolc actually means first used milk, because again, going back to the agricultural year when people lived closer to the land, it was in February, early February, end of January, that the lambs started to arrive. The sheep gave birth, and with the birth of the lamb, obviously there was milk. So as the milk came through for the lambs, the humans used to harvest that off the ewes and make cheese and drink the milk itself. So it was a supplement to what at that time of the year was becoming a very meagre diet. So Imbolc was a real celebratory time. It was seeing the end of the harsh days of winter. So since pagan times this has been celebrated, and it's associated with one particular pagan goddess, the one that we would call Bridget or Brig, and that particular goddess has actually come down to us through the ages and is now Saint Bridget in the Catholic faith. So the importance of that particular symbol comes through to today. But the aspect of Bridget that is interesting is that she is what is known as the triple goddess. She's associated with water and healing. She's associated with the arts and also with fire and blacksmithing. So she's quite a broad-based deity. So one of the things we do at this time of year, this is a festival that is sacred to the goddess Bridget, and we make a Bridget's cross. We use reeds to do that, and I'm fortunate in the fact that because I've got a wet garden, all I have to do is walk outside. But you need to get these reeds, and they need to be green like this so they'll bend. Once we've harvested our reeds, then we need to take out the dead bits because they're brittle and they don't bend properly. So we just sort them through, and of course being plant material it's all biodegradable. I don't have to worry about what I do with it. So we get ourselves a nice bunch of green reeds. That's the first step. So this is not a tutorial about making the Bridget's cross, it's just a primer. There are so many good YouTube channels out there doing that it would be foolish for me to try to compete with them. But what this is about explaining to you the significance of Imbolc to Druids and to the pagan community as a whole. So I'm no expert at this, there are people who are much better than I am at this, but basically what you do, you squeeze the rush to soften it and then fold it around like this, and the first four are actually quite difficult to do. But once you get the first four in place, it gets that much easier. So you squeeze the rush between your thumb and finger to make it bend. But this is the process, and this is an important part of our Imbolc ceremony, actually making this to keep. So I'll show you the finished article when it's done. So what I've created is a Bridget's cross, and if you look at it, you'll see it's actually a sun symbol. It's a very, very ancient symbol. It's something that has been around since pagan times, and yet St Bridget has come down through the ages to us and is now a Catholic saint. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed what I said, and it would be nice if you gave me a like, and maybe you might want to subscribe to receive the updates, because I'll be putting a video out about every 3 weeks. In the meantime, I hope your year is fruitful and full of blessings. Goodbye.